these randoms keep getting jobs? Don't worry about it. I'ma say it. I can't wait to say it. I love it. I love it. Go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the NotBland Show. Welcome. I'm Dujane Bland, and we're going to talk Week 6 football. We're going to do a little bit of something different. Normally, I come to you Mondays and break down the action from the previous week. Since we're kind of thrown off because of Hurricane Helene and other things going on in the world, we're going to come to you today and bring you some preview of this weekend's action. And I'm super excited to have my colleague here from SportsJourney, Bob Matthews. He's going to be in just a bit. He did not catch yesterday's show. Go back and catch that show. It was the NHRA playoff version of the show. There'll be week 4 for them in the NHRA playoffs at the Stampede of Speed. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hot, though. And it usually, when it's hot, that means a lot of tire smoke. So, we'll see how it all goes and how it plays out. I do think there will be some upsets this week as things go forward in this playoffs. When we come back, we will have my colleague and guest, Bob Matthews, and we'll start this thing talking about NFL football. Again, if you're new here, like and subscribe to the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Share it. As you know, we're brought to you by SportsJourney and Everything Nitro and sponsored by Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. Look, it's time to get involved now. You can still win stuff. There's about 4 races left, so you can still win. You can be a part of our league. It's definitely not too late, and that link and that invite code will be in the banner after this word from our sponsor.
Drag racing fans, check out Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. It's the free, family-friendly fantasy bracket game. Now, after final qualifying at every national event, you can fill out your bracket for all the pro classes.
It's free, easy to click on your picks. If you need some help, just hit the randomizer button to fill in the blanks. It's for fun, stay engaged, and pick your winners today.
Without further ado, we'll have Bob. What's going on, Bob?
I tell you what, I'm feeling a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Inadequate after being backstage here, my brother, and seeing everything that you got going on here. This is unbelievable. Thanks for having me, though.
Yeah, man. We talked about it in the off season for us, and it's time to start displaying the talent that we have here on this roster here at SportsJourney. And speaking of talent, New York Jets, full of talent, decided to make Robert Saleh the scapegoat. When you heard the news, what was your first initial thoughts on that whole thing?
I think my first initial thoughts on it were, thank God it's happening someplace besides here in Washington. To be honest with you. This is a move. The former ownership here, doubt that shall not be named anymore, would pull.
Right. Yes.
I think it's, much as Aaron Rodgers, I think, would like to protest, it appears as though he is running the show there. And it's the Jets are looking at, barring something really unusual happening, having to blow this thing up again at the end of the year and start all over.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that. And I get it. The guy's had 2 7-win seasons. His overall record is 20-36. over the, I believe, 4 years that he's been there, maybe 5. The bottom line is, to me, is, again, this is ownership. The guy wasn't given much when he came in here. And then when he was given a quarterback, unforeseen occurrence happens, and he finds himself out for the rest of the year due to a freak Achilles injury. I look at this team and the slow start at times, the discombobulated offense, and it points to Nathaniel Hackett. And, whether the rumors were true that he wanted to make some changes with the coaching staff, and they ended up making these changes anyway after they let him go. But,
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will point to you Exhibit A. This is Aaron Rodgers. And for whatever reason, he's thrown some wild interceptions. This one last week in London, when you look at this next view from the All-22, you will see that the linebacker is clearly backing up. He's looking that way. He chooses to release this ball, and it gets picked. That's not on the receiver. That's not on coaching. That's on you, my friend. And the dumbfounded look that he always has when he makes a mistake like it's somebody else's fault bothers me a bit. Let's go to number 2. Here we are. You can see that they're going to back out of this thing. What does he do? Overthrows it. That's not receiver. That's not coaching. That's Rodgers. Rodgers has 4 interceptions on the year. He had 3 in this game. He is 56.41% passer rating on completion percentage through the 3 losses that he's had. 66 of 117 for 636 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and was sacked 9 times. Look, we can point fingers in a lot of places. And I feel like the Jets are just like the Eagles. You're blaming the wrong person for your issues. They don't run the ball well. They're 32nd in the amount of rush yards they average, 80.4. 3.6 yards a carry, not very good. That's 30th. So the imbalance is a problem. But look at Nathaniel Hackett and the way he's been calling, what he's been calling. It really does look like the offense is very lethargic.
Yeah, it does. Two things for me that jump out when I watch that tape. First of all, are you kidding me? Not only do you have graphics and a ticker, but you've also got all 22 tape that you punched through flawlessly on this thing. My God, and I can barely get a radio show done here. So I am so incredibly impressed by that. The second thing, in all seriousness, and I will never put myself out there as any kind of an expert when it comes to quarterback mechanics or footwork or anything like that, but it didn't, especially on that second interception, did not look like he set his feet very well, especially that back one. And if I'm mistaken, that's the one that had the Achilles injury last year. So, the guy's 40 years old. Maybe even though he's quote unquote 100% healthy, you don't bounce back from something like that at 40 years old. And maybe he can't drive off his back foot anymore. Maybe that's why the pass sailed there.
Yeah. I was noticing that in the first 2 games. Kirk has kind of moved from that now. He looks like himself. He's moving in the pocket. He's doing the things that we've seen him do over his career. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of arm throwing from Aaron, and I see a lot of front foot throwing from Aaron. Now that this is all done, I'm in the belief that, yes, when you make a change, usually you'll get a boost in your first game, and they're going to need this boost because they're going against a team in the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football that is 3-2. They are 2-3 in this division, and they need to keep pace with them in order to even remotely have a shot at winning the division and hopefully making the playoffs. This Bills team is very balanced. 50%, 50.18% in pass, 49.82% in rush. That's very, very balanced. Defense, 65% completion percentage, though. That's not very good as far as the pass game goes. They are 26th in that regard. So they're one of the worst in passing yards per pass at 5.2. So they can get some things over, but it all starts with them being able to run the football with a backfield that they have 3 backs. Not too many teams can say that they can look in the backfield and have 3 guys in the backfield they can hand the ball off to and actually have success here.
Correct. No, you're absolutely right. And, and again, when it comes to the Jets, at 2-3, that's why this whole situation, I think, is just so screwed up and potentially catastrophic for them. You're 2-3. That's hardly a reason to push the panic button at this point in the season. You're only a game behind the division leaders. And again, Saleh is the guy that's running the defense. He's a defensive coach. It's a pretty good defense, which is going to keep you in games. So why Woody Johnson didn't get Saleh and Rodgers in a room together and say, you two work it out. If you can't work it out, Robert, you go to that corner. Aaron, you go to that corner. Robert, let the offense do its thing and let Nathaniel Hackett or whoever and Rodgers do that. You just worry about the defense and, Gronk zoo it like the Yankees did back in the 70s. So, and when you combine the fact that, there's a good running game there and there is no reason for this organization to be in the state that they're at.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And I think as Bill Parcells would say, you are what your record says you are. When you look at the eye test, they are what they are. And hopefully this change at offensive coordinator here gives them a little bit more fluidity. I think that makes a huge difference. I think folks in Washington would agree with that when you talk about Eric Bieniemy and the lack of fluidity with what he was doing. But all said and done, you can't change some of the things that's going on at quarterback. That's not timing issues. That's his issue. And we've seen this be an issue for him even before he got with the Jets. And the problem I have with a guy like him, he never takes responsibility for his own actions. And he points the finger a lot and doesn't own anything. And so hopefully they can turn this thing around and be competitive. I know Jets fans are really hoping that. But it's going to be very interesting. They're going to have to really come out and swing the bats here on Monday Night Football. Speaking of coaching, talking about the Eagles here and Nick Sirianni, another guy that gives me a little bit of an axe to grind. When you look at what they've done there in Philly, they got rid of Brian Johnson and sent him on his way. And yet the offense still seems to be a little bit like it was, if not worse, I should say, and it is worse than when Brian Johnson was there. Mm-hmm. Would you say that Nick Sirianni's butt cheeks are hot in this seat?
Oh, absolutely. I think they were hot coming into the season. Well, I don't think they were hot coming into the season, but they were certainly warm, and you just knew that it would not take much for them to get hot. I said on my show, when we were previewing the season, I said the Eagles are at an inflection point as far as this journey goes. They were 10-1 last year, or 9-1, or whatever. They wind up 10-7. They lose, or 11-6. They lose in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, they had lost 9 out of their last 10 games. If they didn't get off to a 4-1, 5-1, 4-2 type of start, it could turn ugly quickly. Now, granted, they've had some injuries. They're getting some guys back this week, but still, Sirianni is. I think he's in a lot of trouble. And again, I was talking about this with Scott Jackson yesterday. We're going to have him on the show later in the week. Yet another shameless plug. But the talent level in the NFL is Jackson's great. The talent level in the NFL is razor thin. I mean, the difference in overall talent between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Carolina Panthers really isn't that much, which means that belief and confidence are a huge part of what makes a team go. Yeah, and we're seeing that with the Commanders right now. The Commanders have bought in, And that makes them a dangerous team. The Eagles, on the other hand, I think it doesn't take more than 1 or 2 bad breaks per week to get them thinking, okay, here we go again. And it just becomes self-perpetuating like that.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where my segment comes in.
Let me talk to you.
Let me talk to you. So Nick Sirianni thought he was in getting rid of Brian Johnson and thinking that he was the issue. Then you go and make the most boneheaded move ever and get a guy who practically ruined the Chargers as a coach, as an offensive coordinator, and you think he's going to come to your town and do a better job? The track record is the track record, right? His standard is the standard. It's always been the standard. So now you try to use another guy as a scapegoat when it's your coaching and management skills that are really the issue here. And you add another bonehead dummy to come out here and call plays that's going to put your quarterback at a disadvantage. You're doing things that your offense really isn't, sustained. It's not sustainable for your offense. Now, you got all these little weapons that you could be using that you can throw out of the backfield to, and they can be issues in the open field. And no, you insist on banging your head against the wall, doing the same things over and over again every week, and you are in games that you have no business being in dogfights with guys that you clearly, on paper, are 100% better than. So you know what that all boils down to, right? Not only did you hire a piss-poor coach, you yourself are piss-poor. And when you have 2 piss-poor people doing stupid things and playing stupid games, guess what? You get stupid prizes. And in this league, it's L's. It's why I said, I know Lake talked about them being the front runners of this division. And by default, really, because every other team in the division is either just awful or in a rebuild mode. They are not them, okay? And at this point of the season, when we look at the Washington Commanders and the way that they're being coached, they got 30-some new people on this roster, and in a few games, you start to see the building, the guys getting it, buying in, playing for their teammates, the team unity. All that stuff matters. And then you add that with a coaching staff that doesn't have ego, that's not out to prove anything, and isn't over here trying to throw the next guy under the bus. It's all one band, one sound. That's a difference maker. And guess what? All the other teams in the NFC East are exactly what the Eagles are. A bunch of numbskulls calling plays and continue to do the same dumb stuff every week, getting dumb prizes. It's really, honestly, a division that this Commanders team could actually win, because the other team, well, Giants just aren't that good. Coaching to players, not that good. Dallas, their defense is still the defense they were last year with minus a few people, and that makes them quite ugly because, Dan Quinn was able to manage how to use Parsons and that small defensive front. They can't do that. You got a guy coming off the couch, and you think that you're going to sell me on him coming off the couch as a head coach, and he was let go. If he was that darn good as a defensive coordinator, he would have been off the couch and in somebody's team. So I'm not buying that. This is really the Commanders, division to actually go ahead and try to seize.
Yeah, everything is set up for them right now. And based on the way they played the last month, we all sit there when the schedule comes out and we make predictions and say, well, they've got a good chance to beat this team and they have no chance against that team. And can they split, these games in the division and et cetera, et cetera. But what we've seen the last month is that all that's out the window now for the Commanders, because you look at it and say, aside from this week when, they should be a pretty decisive underdog, you can make a logical, and probably this week too, you can make a logical argument for how they can win every game on their schedule. They're not going to do that, obviously, but you can make the logical argument. And you're right, with the way and I said I thought there was a chance that this could happen in the NFC East this year. But again, that's what's happening. The Eagles have past the point of no return potentially. Dallas has always been a fraud, and it's amazing how organizations go out and get coaches that don't know how to coach the style of player that they have, and it looks like maybe that's happened with the Cowboys on defense. And as you said, the Giants are a grease fire. So it's all out there for the Commanders. We're going to know a lot more about them after this Ravens game.
Indeed, we're going to talk about that game here.
We're
going to talk about that game here too. We're going to know a lot. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is another game that I feel like it's pivotal for both teams. Tampa Bay is 3-2 and really needs to keep pace with the Atlanta Falcons. And New Orleans, they need to keep pace with both Tampa and the Falcons. When I look at this team in Tampa, they have been a Jekyll and Hyde. They do have the ability to really blow you up in whether it's through the pass or through the rush. But their defense and their offense at times seems to falter. New Orleans, you're losing Derek Carr. You're going to bring in Spencer Rattler. I've never been a Dennis Allen fan. I really do think that his cheeks are hot on the seat as well. When you look at this game, who do you has this advantage, especially with the quarterback change? Who has this advantage in coming into this divisional matchup?
It's got to be the Bucs. I mean, just from the simple fact that the Saints are starting a rookie quarterback that was a late round draft pick. I mean, this is not Spencer Rattler did not come in as the heir apparent, as a franchise quarterback. He was there because they thought maybe he had some potential down the line. I seriously doubt that he's ready to go. It's got to be the Bucs. If you're Tampa, you're going into this game thinking, any given Sunday, we get that. But this is a golden opportunity for us. We have caught the Saints at the exact right time. Let's go in, let's take care of business, and let's get a big game up in the division.
Yeah, definitely, because basically the Falcons have a bye week. I think if you got Kirk Cousins as your quarterback in fantasy, you better start him because he's going to light it up this week against Carolina. And so these two teams, somebody's got to lose, right? But these two teams, one of these teams have to win. And there's a few things that I being that I cover the NFC South here, there's a few things that startle me when you look at the Bucs defense. And here's one of them. Kirk Cousins here, you see Kyle Pitts there. This is something that I've been calling for over and over again. Seam route right there. Linebacker can't cover that big guy. And then the safeties are deep. Those are things that you can utilize, that the Saints can utilize, because those are quick 3-step drops. You can use a slot receiver or your tight end, get them in the seam and release the ball. No 7-step drops with this young kid. And of course, it starts with the run game, right? You have Alvin Kamara, you have Williams. You want to be able to slow down that pass rush, because we know that Todd Bowles loves to blitz and bring blitzes. And I believe this next video is an example of that. You'll see them looking to do that. They back out of it. He sits down in the zone. Boom. It is incredible. I actually, when you have this type of wide receiver who is big and can do these types of things, it makes it a lot easier for you. You look at the drag routes in that game to Mooney. They've been beat on that several times. Go back to the Broncos game with the Buccaneers defense. They got slaughtered by the young kid. So there are things out there that they can take advantage of to help their young quarterback be successful in this particular game and give them an opportunity to win. Now, when you look at the Bucs offense, this is what you don't want. He's comfortable. You got Evans. You got they like to use the running back. They like to use the tight end in the little flat, throwing the flat, kind of a screen deal. When those guys are running downhill as the offensive line, and he's able to be back there, Mayfield be able to get comfortable, it's dangerous. And they light you up. They move the ball pretty quickly. We saw that in this game against the Falcons. I really believe this could be a potential shootout because we know that the Saints defense is really good. I have questions about their linebacking core, starting with Chase Young and his inconsistencies that we saw here in Washington, but people just want to act like none of that happened. The giving up on plays, etc. They have the ability to slow them down, but Baker, if he gets comfortable, it's going to be a shootout. And you don't want to be in a
possible.
shootout.
No. Well, and again, you go back to the fact that the Saints are starting a rookie, whatever it was, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick quarterback. It's going to shock me if Spencer Rattler goes out there and throws for 300 yards, and this does become a 35-34 game. I think the Saints' best chance is to take the air out of the ball, rely on that great running game, and just hopefully shorten it. And whether they can do that or not is up in the air.
Now, if they can do that, this is one thing they can do, and they did this against the Cowboys. Great play here. This is an example of a guy coming off the blitz there. You see they get Parsons, push him up the field, plenty of time, and guess what? Outruns both of those guys for a touchdown. They have the people and the speed to do so. And if you can run the ball very well, now you can afford to run a play like this and have your back kind of filter out, chip, and still be able to get this off. We know Spencer Rattler has an arm. And if they can just simply do the things that they do in running the football, those type of big plays can be available against a defense that is prone to giving up big plays. Hence Kirk Cousins' walk-off touchdown in overtime.
Right. The question is just, can Spencer Rattler process it enough, fast enough, in order to get this to happen? That's the bottom line. We are definitely going to find out. That's for sure.
Yes, indeed. That brings me to the game that I think everyone is watching, and that is the Washington Commanders against the Baltimore Ravens. Going just up the road to Baltimore. This is super easy for both teams. I think both offenses are in a great spot here. There's some interesting notes, though. This defense is pretty decent in the first half for the Baltimore Ravens. In the second half, though, they are 22nd in points per game in the third quarter, and they're darn near dead last in points per game in the fourth quarter. Hence the reasons why they have been in dogfights with teams that they have had no business being in dogfights with. This is a defense that I know people looking at Washington in the same light, but let's be fair. This is the defense in Baltimore that can be taken advantage of big time, especially late in games. And with the way that the Commanders run the football, that could pose a problem for them if this game is close like we think it will be.
It's a really interesting dynamic. I said last week that Cleveland and Baltimore, to me, represent Jaden Daniels' first midterm exam. Last week was multiple choice, which is a little bit easier. This week's the essay portion of the midterm. And I know that Baltimore's defense is not what it's been in the past. We all get that. but you're still talking about overall, you are finally stepping up in class here, in weight class.
Mhm.
You can equivocate with every one of these last 4 wins. The time at the time the Cardinals only had 1 win. I know they beat San Francisco, but the Browns, obviously Deshaun Watson looks like he's given up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to relitigate the whole thing. But
Right.
this week, despite the fact that they're 3-2, this Baltimore team is a legit contender to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, even at 3-2. So this is that they're going in there. It's going to be loud. It's like anything else. It's like nothing else he's faced in the NFL so far. So
Yeah.
it's going to be fascinating to see how Jaden Daniels handles it. Now, if you look at the franchise as a whole over the last 25 years, we know exactly how this is going to go. They build up a head of steam. They come into this. They're the big stage, and they lay an egg.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that is not going to happen. We do have indications that this is not your father's Washington football team. So
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see how Daniels performs against the Ravens defense, whether it's as good as defenses from years past or not.
Yeah. I'm really, I look at Kyle Hamilton on that defense as a guy that they will use to come off the edge a little bit, like we've seen several teams do. Cincinnati, this past week with the Browns, they tried to do some of that as well. And I understand where people are coming from, but this kid here, this is a design run. But for the most part, he is not looking to run in most passing situations. Now, guy comes off the edge there, okey doke, gone. I don't think it matters if it's a guy like Kyle Hamilton who does have speed. I think it's the worst thing we've seen them do with the Baltimore, seen them do pretty well, is bring that extra man up the middle. I think that's one of the worst things that you can do, but it's been shown over the last 5 weeks that even if you come off the edge, he's not spooked by it at all. He's either going to stand in there and take the shot and deliver a shot like we saw there to De'Ami Brown, or he's going to see you and he sees you and he's going to raise you one, okey doke you, and get 5 to 10. This is not something that it's natural for him. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most dangerous part of it all, is that it's
not to
this
mention
is
the
not
fact
a
the Browns
manufactured
have got
or
a pretty good defense of their own.
Yes. This is not manufactured or forced. This is just natural ability. And I think that's very hard to game plan for when you have an athletic quarterback of this nature. But then we look at the other side of the ball and they have an athletic quarterback as well. And it's talked about a lot. But let's take a look at this here, Bob. He is a guy who can throw from the pocket, and he throws a laser beams. And we know in weeks past that the secondary has been gutted. And you see in this particular play here, this wasn't a 7-step drop. This wasn't, anything elongated. This was 3-4 steps, get the ball out. This is a long one here. But look at the protection. Look at the protection. Look at the just precise precision throws here. And then they hit you with stuff like this with Hill. And they use Hill. They use Henry in this regard. They'll throw it out there to Likely. They'll use their fullback involved in this. There's a lot of weapons to be worried about. It's going to be very important for this team to play sound defense, isn't it?
Yeah, unless and until the Commanders' defense shows us that they can stop those things, you have to go into this game saying this is a bad matchup for them, a really bad matchup for them. Derrick Henry could very well run for 200 yards. I mean, Lamar Jackson could run and throw for another 300. I mean, it's very possible that happens.
Yeah.
But again, we're in the point of the season where you're trying to figure out who everybody is. So, this is the chance to, and again, you can, I'm not saying I agree with it, but you can make the logical argument. The first 2-3 weeks or so, it's a lot of new players on the Commanders defense. They're trying to learn how to play with each other, play in the same system and play as a unit. And, we saw last week that they kind of were able to play as a unit. And we saw that the week before against Cincinnati, and in Arizona. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't have a lot of big plays. Didn't see any big plays last week, despite the fact that I know Deshaun Watson has got a lot going on. That's still a hell of a talented quarterback there. And if there had been an opportunity for a big play, I think he probably would have hit it. So maybe the defense is getting better. But again, like for Daniels, for the defense, this is the essay portion of the midterm this week.
Yeah. They have a lot to work with here. What I do like about this defense, and there's two things that stand out. First of all, we're starting to see Allen and Payne be disruptive a bit. And that's important to the whole, really, the whole entire meal here, or the recipe to them having success. On top of that, what we see a lot from athletic linebackers, and it's in this division as well. You see Michael Parsons doing it now. I feel like he's trying to do too much. Is they are trying to play hero ball, and when they do, they find themselves out of position. And especially in the last 4 weeks, that front seven, the linebackers have been where they need to be to make the tackle at the very least. Not too many big popped off run plays like it was in the first game or game and a half, maybe even two. You see guys being in position, being ready to make a tackle, and they're making sound tackles. Those two things are going to be very important in this particular game, because I think the biggest and toughest formation that the Baltimore Ravens have is that two tight end set, adding the fullback as a anchor or another offensive lineman, because he is that big and that strong. That particular formation, they can throw out of it and beat you. They can scheme screens out of it and use the fullback as the particular receiver, and then they can also run out of that with Henry, which I think is the toughest thing that they can do, because Henry doesn't have the big burst, but when he gets his body going and he gets around the corner, that's a load to bring down, and he will make it very difficult if they cannot continue to push that to the sideline, possibly, and kind of slow that down. I think that formation is probably the most dangerous. But when you look at the games that the Ravens have played, Doc Walker was on a program with friends of ours over there at the urban sports scene, and he said they're just too dumb to know to run the football continually. If I had a back that big, I'd be running him every down, and I definitely would be. But they do a lot of passing out of that formation, and they really don't run Henry as much as I feel like they should. Maybe that changes this week, but I think that's to the advantage of this Washington Commanders defense, because I do believe they match up well with that particular formation with the two tight ends and that fullback. I think that plays to their advantage if they're going to continue to pass more than they're running out of that formation.
But it remains to be seen. I got big time concerns for it on both sides of the ball. I could see it being a shootout, and I can see it getting away from the Commanders early. Again, to me, the whole thing is just kind of play the long game with it. And how does Jaden Daniels look? Hopefully he looks good, whether it's a win or a loss. And even if he doesn't, then, based on what he's done so far, you can say, all right, learning experience, let's learn from it and move on. But it's going to be, again, it's midterm exam part 2 this weekend.
Yeah, the pace of the offense is going to make a difference, and I think both offenses are pretty much the same pace. They don't. It's not any. It's not super quick ball. They do have a cadence and a kind of a slow rhythm to them. That's why you see a lot of time of possession favored, especially with the Commanders. So I do think that is something that could be in their favor. The best offense, the best defense is a good offense that can hold the ball and obviously make sure you put points on the board. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Both teams really need to keep pace in their division. And last but not least, we'll break down this Thursday night matchup here that we have: San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, right after this. You don't know anything about funny cars? Fine. Go to the NHRA's
sadly zero.
Go to the
Zero.
NHRA's Fast Channel. That's on Roku. That's on Tubi. That's on Samsung. It's free, and you can watch every Wednesday Talking Funny Cars with Buddy Hull, where he talks to different funny car drivers and gets their analysis on how they got here, why they chose funny car, what made them choose drag racing, and why were they crazy enough to do 300 plus mile an hour, 330 mile an hour, top speed by funny cars, 341 mile an hour, unofficial, not NHRA official, but it's been done. You can find out why they were crazy enough to do that type of racing on that show. Great show, great guy, and you'll learn a lot. Well, Detroit and the Dallas Cowboys. Detroit, a team that really wants to make a statement this year and take this thing to where they want it to be, and that's the Super Bowl. They're playing quite well. I feel like the Cowboys have gotten they've gotten away with a few wins here just because other teams they've played have made more mistakes than they have. The way it's looked on the field, though, Bob, for the Cowboys, it looks bad. You know what I mean? It looks kind of sloppy. But when you go and look at the actual numbers for them offensively, this team, at least offensively, is completing 64% of its passes, almost 65. It is very imbalanced, though. When you're running the ball 63.98% of the time, that ain't good. 36.02% rush. That is a very imbalanced football team. But defensively, it also kind of looks bad. The worst thing is their red zone scoring, which is almost 79%, but they're only allowing 31.67% in third down conversions. The completion percentage obviously is high, but they've been in more games, more times than not, with the imbalance of that offense. They're almost converting 50%, 45%, I should say, in third down, which is not bad. Not great, but it's not bad. What does Detroit have to do to make sure that they don't get clipped by a team that I feel that isn't on their level?
All right, you ready? I'm going to drop some knowledge on you here. The biggest key for Detroit in this game, and I guarantee you they will win if they do this one thing. You ready?
Yeah.
Score more points.
Yeah, because they can't.
I'm sorry. No, I know that was way too long to go for a very hackneyed joke. No, I just don't trust the Cowboys. I never have, and maybe that's biased as a Washington fan. But it just seems like you can throw out statistic after statistic after statistic on the Cowboys, and some way somehow when they get into a big moment, and I don't know that this is a big one because for them, big moments are in the postseason. Something is going to happen to derail the whole thing. They let Jordan Love make his grand postseason entrance. They bobble a snap on a field goal that they should hit. It just something that just this franchise, I've said since Jimmy Johnson walked out the door, has been all hat and no cattle, and they every single solitary year they prove that. I think if Detroit just goes in and plays their game, I think Detroit's got more than enough talent to beat Dallas. I really do. So that's simple.
Play within themselves. Defensively, I think they're superb. Offensively, they are superb weapon-wise. It doesn't take much to get this Dallas Cowboys offense off its kilter. And if you get up on them for scoring, as far as scoring goes, they're one-dimensional, and they've proven by the statistics that they make themselves one-dimensional. For whatever reason, ground game is just not working, not working consistent enough, and Dak will give you a few. So really, it's just a matter of not screwing it up, going out there, doing your job, executing. Don't give them any freebies. I think they win this one. Dallas needs this more than anything with the way that the Washington Commanders are playing and the way that some in the media feel like the Eagles will be, and they will have theirs. I mean, they have to play, they have to play some of the same guys that the Commanders do in Carolina and the Cleveland Browns, which they play this week. So there are games that they are definitely favored in and probably will get those wins. And because of that, Dallas definitely needs to beat the teams that are, like you said about the Baltimore Ravens. This is the essay portion of your test, and they have to go out and pass that if they want to keep pace with the other two teams in this NFC East division.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I just think the window's closed for Dallas if it was ever open. I think the Lions are just plain old a better team. I think Dallas has lost enough guys on defense that Amon-Ra St. Brown might wind up with a huge game. Jared Goff's come into his own as a quarterback. They're just better. I mean, we could sit here and couch it any way we wanted to, or throw out a bunch of fancy stats and personnel groupings and everything. Detroit's just a better team. That's all there is to it right now.
Yeah. I like them in this one. And look, Dallas Cowboy fans, I've said this a few times this season. Get ready for a very long drought. You paid Dak, you paid CD, and now you got to pay Micah. Guess what? Do you have any money to pay anybody else worth anything to have a formidable defense? You already know what that answer is. You're hamstrung. It's called cap hell.
Yep.
Welcome to the penitentiary.
Yep.
It's going to be a long one.
Yes, it is.
I'm not sure what the latest is, Memphis.
It happened to a better organization.
Exactly. I'm not sure what the latest is on the stadium. I know the baseball stadium took a hit from Milton. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything on it, so I'm assuming that it is okay. But I will do some digging and see if I can't find that out. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything either. I think the fact that the storm came in around St. Petersburg as opposed to Tampa, I think that helped a lot.
Yes, a lot.
Detroit can run.
Somebody had to get it.
Most definitely.
Yes. I like the coaching. And these coaches got to stop with the all three phases stuff. It's cliche. Like, it really is cliche. So many coaches say it, and I get it, but come on, man. Like, sometimes you don't need one of those phases, and it's usually special teams that you don't need, because sometimes
and also
the offense
sometimes
and the
you don't
defense
have
just
to
dominate.
tape either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
and you don't have to look
you
at the
know if
tape
you look
either.
bad or not. Exactly. You know if you look bad or
Yeah.
not. Some days you just pooped your pants on the field and everybody saw it.
Mhm.
And you saw it too, but you just don't want to admit it.
Right. If I can
Tonight,
see it,
though.
anybody can see it.
Yeah. Tonight, though, we have a pretty good game on our hands. Seahawks defense, though, this is a game, though, that I believe the 49ers this is a get-right game for them. That secondary of the Seahawks is very porous. Give up a lot of big passing plays. Obviously, it starts for the 49ers with running the football. Mason's been doing a great job, and every time Mason has been in rhythm, has gotten big yards per carry and getting either close or over 100 yards, this team is likely going to win. They kind of got out of themselves last week, hence them losing. This is definitely a get-right game. I clearly feel that the better team is the 49ers. Look, Gino and the gang fight really hard, but let's be real. They have a little bit of a running game, and they've got that big man on the outside as a wide receiver, and no one else has consistently come to the party and showed up and showed out, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. I still think, despite the injuries, I think that that the 49ers are the better team here. But again, they're going to have to come out and prove it. It's kind of a midterm exam type of game for the Seahawks as well. But we'll just
And
see.
it's Thursday night football.
Yeah, and so who knows what can happen, because these guys are just
Right.
starting to feel good today.
Right. That's one thing about Thursday night football is the great equalizer. And I think we've seen this repeatedly over and over again when you come into a game like this. And yes, Seattle's 3-2, but I mean, we know that it should be the 49ers that are the better overall team. But it doesn't always work like that on Thursday night football. And we usually end up seeing some surprises. I'm going to go against the grain and still pick the 49ers, but I'm not going to be surprised if the Seahawks win this game by 6 or less.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a play caller there that's finally kind of dragged the offense into the 2020s, and like you said, when you got the big man on the outside, all you got to do, he doesn't need a lot of room to make a play. So
Right.
and as you said, anything can happen. It's there in Seattle. You got the 12th man going on. So hey, Thursday night football, anything literally can happen.
Yeah. Yes, Scott.
But yeah,
It
Scott's
is.
right. It is a big game.
It's a big game. And, Seattle's got a little bit of motivation. Last time they met, December 10th, 2023, it was the San Francisco 49ers 28, the Seattle Seahawks 16. So Seahawks want to get a little get back. The new coach wants to also, make a statement as well over there. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I do like I don't know about you, Bob, but I do like the production that the Prime audience and their group of guys, the whole get up. I do like what they put on as a program. It is different than all the other ones. And that makes it watchable to me.
Yeah, no, I do. I think production-wise, they do a great job with that. And I think that, regardless, I know people like to say that Al Michaels has lost his fastball and everything, but he's still a pretty damn good announcer. Herb Street does a great job. I do. I like the pregame show and postgame show that they do. I think, it's one of those things. It benefits from the fact that it just product-wise has King Kong out there, in that it doesn't matter where you put the NFL on or when. It's going to draw, tens of millions of people to watch it, no matter what.
Yeah. It is. It is king at the moment. Bob, let everybody know what you got coming up. I'm sure your show is going to be coming up soon about the Baltimore game, so you'll be making your predictions there.
Yep. We should be dropping the Baltimore preview either tonight or tomorrow, depending on what my honeydew list is after I get off the air here. We got, like I said earlier, we've got Scott Jackson for the Commanders Radio Network. He's the halftime and post-game host, so he's going to chop it up with us. We're going to hear from Jaden Daniels when he was at the podium earlier today. And, you can find it at SportsJourney.com. And then coming up next week on the show, we begin our Washington Capitals coverage, too, because we're also a part of the Hockey Podcast Network. So not only do you get your Commanders fix every week, you get your weekly Caps fix as well. So just go to SportsJourney.com or the HockeyPodcastNetwork.com or at Bob Matthews 965 on the website /app formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, I love that one. Man, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. This won't be the last time. We're going to have some fun this year. And thanks for making the show and making the show better by being here. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Bob Matthews, everybody. And we're going to continue to do this. We're going to have some more of my colleagues on that do excellent work over there at Sports Journey. Yeah, we're rocking and rolling now. Big time stuff. Like I said, this week is going to be huge for the NHRA. Going to be another great race at the Dallas Motorplex there. The Stampede of Speed. Going to be a great time. It has already kicked off. The NHRA will kick off tomorrow. Like I said, you're going to want to watch Friday night. That's your hero session. That's the session that you got to hit the home run to get qualified, because the next day is going to be hot as the Deacons, and you ain't going to run those numbers again for the rest of the weekend. So it's going to be fun. I do see some oddballs winning this, some unsung heroes, not the points leaders winning this race just because of heat. 100 degrees on Sunday, race day. That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Texas picks, dude. Let's see. I'll get you. We're gonna extend this a little bit. So my picks with that, I'm gonna go with Clay Millican and Top Fuel. I just think the guy runs quite well in the heat. Jimmo has something dialed up there. It could easily be Antron Brown, but we also know that the guys at the top of that ladder have had the case of the yips when the temperatures are hot. So I'm going to go with Clay there. I'm going to go with Blake Alexander and Funny Car. Like I said, I think this is a tuner's race. Jim Head is like no other when it comes to that. He understands those type of conditions, and he knows how to toe the line with that. And I think that's important with when you're coming into race conditions where the track is, temperature's 100 degrees. Track's probably going to be in upwards of 115 or so. So greasy rate track, he knows how to do that. In pro stock bike, I'm going with Richard Gadsden, with Chase Van Zandt being a close honorable mention there. I think, like I said on the show on Tuesday, I think this is Richard's championship to win. Kind of under the radar here, the bike's starting to pick up. You see his performance as a rider being more consistent, and that's all it's going to take. A greasy racetrack. I think this could be a race that he wins. In pro stock, give me a Quadra or Jerry Tucker. Reason being, I think the top guys, you're going to see some tire shake and they're just going to have to lift because the racetrack being so greasy. With that said, this is a race that Erica Enders needs to rise, because I think the people that are at the top might trip up in the second round just because of the conditions. So it's going to be important for those who have an opportunity like Greg that are still kind of alive. If they can get those top two guys out early, are going to make a big difference. So I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to tell you to make sure that you pick all of your picks as some upsets, and they probably should be more upsets than not. Okay. That's the piece of advice that I'm going to give you. All right. And it's probably good advice because it's going to be tough in this particular one to see any of the top guys go out of here and get a bona fide W. If we do see it, it'll be impressive, I think. Thanks, Scott. And thank you for all that you do for this show. Your contributions, among others, are greatly appreciated and have enabled us to do some of the things you saw here tonight, with us being able to break down tape and be able to show you what we're seeing with these football teams to help you guys see the game a little bit differently and understand what we're seeing from teams early in this league and in this particular season that are doing and some of the tendencies that we have. So thank you so much. Memphis Lonnie, same thing. Thank you for all that you do for this show and just being supportive of it. Everybody who's watched this show, my family's here, was watching tonight, so I appreciate it. Again, tell a friend to tell a friend. We would greatly appreciate it. For SportsJourney, for everything Nitro, I'm DuJourney Bland. This has been another edition of the NotBland Show. And be aware to support our sponsor there, Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. With that, good night, everybody.